right, thank you so much for coming to my comedy podcast, Joe.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Today we're at Winter Haven.
Yep.
You said it is the capital of water ski?
Yeah, it's capital water skiing, I believe, in America. Just a long history of it here with Cypress Gardens.
Okay. And they compete with each other?
It's more show water skiing. It's less competition. I mean, I know we have quite a few. They've just recently done a bunch of cable tracks, which is a big deal. I know you can see them off the Parkway if you're driving along. Over in the Parrot Head Village, because there's a retirement community just for Jimmy Buffett fans off of the Parkway.
What?
Yeah, you ever noticed that? Where they have a man-made lake with a water ski track.
Oh,
and
wow,
it's
really?
like over a certain age only, and everything's like
Wow.
Margaritaville, like tiki hut themed and everything like that. You can see the tiki huts hanging out over the retaining walls.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So how is the comedy scene here in Winter Haven?
Comedy scene in Winter Haven's great. I mean, we have LOL. As far as the comedy in Winter Haven, it's pretty much just LOL, but man, like people come in here for that. You know,
Really?
it's one of those things where it's like it's so good that everybody drives
Really?
45 minutes to an hour to come here.
Wow.
Yeah. We have quite a few rooms in Lakeland, but as far as Polk County is concerned, it's kind of few and far between until LOL kind of kicked it off about 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago.
Is that when you started doing comedy, or is it earlier?
Slightly after that, I kind of started before that. I had never done comedy before, and a friend of a friend put me on stage.
Oh, yeah?
I said, hey, do 5 minutes. I'd never been to an open mic.
Right.
I got up on stage and did 12. And I'm like, hey, man, could you stop taking pictures? The light's distracting. And he's like, well, that's the light to get off stage. And I'm like, oh, nobody explained that to me.
What did you talk about the first time?
The first time I got up there, probably just some basic jokes. Honestly, I told stories. My stories were solid, but they were dinner guest stories where they didn't have the beats required to really be a comedy bit, but they were good storytelling.
Okay.
That took a little while to learn. I've always been a storyteller rather than just a, set up punchline.
Like, for starters, to do 5 minutes, you don't really have time to tell a whole story.
I feel like I get most stories out in 5 minutes if
Yeah.
I actually have to cut stuff, but it makes me better by forcing me to cut stuff right off the bat. A lot of times when I listen to the first time I go through something, I will just not really even be listening. I'll be listening for the laughs in the background and just mentally counting in my head 1, 2, and anytime I hit more than 10 to 15 seconds without a laugh or a big payoff, I'm like, okay, that needs to be punched up or trimmed. What part of that is essential?
So, what made you want to do comedy in the first place?
I mean, I always wrote. It was always a secret passion of mine,
Oh, yeah?
like writing. I always wrote in the background. All my electives were creative writing classes. But I happen to be really good at chemistry and math, and that's where there's more money in that than there is in creative writing. You know, so it was always in the background. I always took creative writing 1, 2, 3, and things like that. Made an attempt to be published for a novel one time. That's a long time ago.
Wow,
It was in my
that's
early
great.
20s, but never really pursued that. So
Okay.
yeah, but I also we have the gift of gab in my family. I come from a long and celebrated line of bullshitters.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, people who can just talk your ear off. In my family, I'm actually considered the quiet,
Oh,
reserved
really?
one. Yeah.
So, is that where you get your humor from, your family?
A lot of my family, especially like roasts and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah?
In my family, you weren't allowed to sit at the adult table on Thanksgiving until you made somebody cry.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was just one, because otherwise you couldn't handle it because they were savages.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it's like it was done with love. We were allowed to make fun of each other, but nobody was allowed to make fun of us.
What?
Yeah, like I saw many a boyfriend get ganged up on by my sisters. Because they'd be like, "What, is your brother gonna beat me up?" And I'm like, I'm gonna just here to make sure that you're okay, man, because my
Wow.
sisters are gonna gang pile and just beat you up like you're getting jumped into a gang.
Wow. How many sisters do you have?
I have 5. Yeah.
How is that living with 5 sisters?
I grew up different. I have no brothers. I'm the second youngest, so like I have an easier time talking to women than men, just because I'm used to like, and that makes it really awkward because I'm a very large man and I'm just like, yeah, just like let's talk about different contraceptive options and things like that. And it's just like I know all about this subject from just being around it so much. But I also, I came pre-trained. I didn't have to deal with like I never went through that phase of like, menstruation's weird. I was just like, yeah, that's just a normal part of like I gotta go get. I'm 6 years old. They send me to the store to get tampons on my bike. You know what I mean? It's like it was just so much part of my daily life that I never thought about it.
So Joe, you're 6'5"?
I'm 6'5".
Is your whole family very tall?
No,
Just you?
just me.
How
Both
tall
my
are your sisters?
my tallest sister is 5'9.5".
Really?
Yeah, shortest one is 5'1".
Okay.
With my 5'1" sister, you have to have the rest of them there because we don't look related. If you just look at us, we're opposite ends of the gene pool.
Wow.
You need the gradient of my other sisters in order to say, okay, they are related.
Oh man.
But no, I just part of it maybe it's just going through puberty in Florida, and the polar bear stuff, and part of it is like both my grandfathers were very tall.
Oh, your grandfather was tall.
Yeah, but my mom's only 5'2" and my dad was 5'11", so.
Oh, okay. That's normal range.
Yeah, and I just ended up being 6'5". Nobody expected it, so.
And when was that year you like suddenly grew?
It was just before freshman year of high school.
Okay.
That summer, I grew over 8 inches and put on 70 pounds. I have like stretch marks from it and everything like that.
Wow.
Like I would sleep for 16 hours, wake up, empty out the fridge, and then go back to sleep. My mom complained the whole time. She's like, I have to go shopping every day.
Whoa. That's awesome. So I heard you got like stories from like middle school.
From like middle school, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's what affected me. Like, my oldest son is in middle school now.
Yeah.
And he came, like, he's a 6th grader, and he came, he's like, was middle school easy for you? I was like, no.
Wow.
I was like, I don't want to meet the person who had a good middle school experience. You know what I mean? Like that person, like if you peaked in middle school, what a terrible time to peak. Everybody's awkward and emotions and hormones and smells and things like that. And that's why they separate them out. They need to be quarantined from the rest of society until they're ready to rejoin.
What was the bad experiences you had in middle school?
I was a stinky kid.
Yeah.
I hit puberty, and I had 5 sisters. My mom's like, well, I took care of the girls. My dad she's like, you take care of the boy.
Oh, yeah?
And my dad was just like, he's like, he'll figure it out. And there was nobody there to explain it to me. So.
Oh, no.
So, in fact, one of my sisters came back in for Christmas and is like, oh my God, what is going on? Nobody's watching you.
Oh, no.
And like bought me razors and deodorant and things
Oh,
like that.
wow.
Yeah. I had a beard at like 13, so
Okay.
12, 13.
You went to school in Winter Haven?
In Lakeland, yeah.
Oh, wow, Lakeland. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, my son actually goes to the same middle school I
Oh, wow.
went to.
Okay.
Yeah, because I moved back to the same area. I lived in a couple different places, but I went to school in Tampa, lived out in Tampa, and then when I had children, ended up moving back to Lakeland.
Okay. And you said you met your middle school bully after you got tall?
So my sophomore year in high school, at this point, I'm about 6'4", 240.
All right.
I'm brick muscle. I play football for both.
Right.
I've been working out a lot, and a kid like there was only one movie theater.
Oh, yeah?
And a kid who remembered me from middle school thought he'd get some clout by messing with me, but puberty hadn't been as nice to him as it had to me. I had at least a foot on him, and I was like, no, I'm not that kid anymore. And he's like, oh, it's Stinky Joe. And I was just like, you're gonna stop.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, no. And what are you gonna do about it? So I picked him up and I shoved him in a trash can.
Like, how long did he stay in the trash can?
He got out pretty quick. Of course I had to miss my movie and duck out. It was just one of those things where it's just like, well, who's Stinky now?
Oh, no.
Everybody's gonna remember that you got stuffed into a trash can.
You said you did a comedy show out of state. Where was that, Colorado?
Yeah, I did Colorado Springs. I wasn't actually booked on a show.
Yeah.
I was out there for a wedding, and my friends were the drunk jerks that we see at every comedy show.
Yeah.
It's like, my friend's funnier than
Yeah.
anybody up here. And I'm like, guys, stop.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm trying to corral them, but I have 6 giant, because my friends were all giants. Like my friend Josh. My friend Josh is the runt at 6'1".
Oh.
So it's like one of those things where it's like 5 giant dudes plus me.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, my friend Joe's much funnier than everybody. And like, I'm like, stop, guys, because we ended up stumbling into a comedy show during a bar crawl, and I'm just like, oh god. And they brought me up there, and they gave me 5 minutes. And they're like, are you funny? I'm like, yeah. And I actually destroyed their showcase. It was fantastic. It felt really good to just come out there and just like get underestimated and be able to just show up like that. And, you know, low opportunity cost. You know, low risk, high reward, and just came in like coming off stage. You're like, who are you? And I'm just like, oh, hi, I'm Joe.
What did you talk about that set?
That set, I just did Nice Dick, which is I have a theory that the world would be a better place if we got to the point where men could tell each other nice dick.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, be perfectly okay with it, because it would require a certain level of emotional security and like personal security within themselves, and, you know, so many woes in our, like, it would be I don't know, a canary in the coal mine for elimination of a bunch of woes, because if that lives, and homophobia is down, insecurity is down, you know, emotional security is up, and things like that.
Why do people even have homophobia? Like, are they afraid that actually they are gay? Like, why don't you explore it if you?
Well, I mean, that's just it. It's like most guys are so afraid of doing anything that's even remotely.
Really?
Like even me just holding this microphone, this would bother some guys like this.
Really?
Yes, because it is very phallic.
Is it from like playing sports and they're so?
It's more that it was an insult. I mean, when I was a kid, it was common on the playground to play a game called Smear the Queer, and that's completely not okay anymore, and it's not ever used. But it was just one versus everybody, and it's whoever had the ball, and like, you know, calling somebody gay was an insult and things like that. And the more I started looking at it, I was like, why is that an insult? Why is that anything? It's like, if you know who you are, it doesn't matter. Like, if somebody tells me I'm short, I'm just gonna be like, well, I know I'm not short,
right?
So that doesn't hurt me. And it's like, it's a lot of people don't want to explore themselves.
Yeah, that's too bad, because then people start exploring when they're 40, 50s and already had a family. That's not what they really wanted.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you get told, you put into the mold, into the cookie cutter, and shot out of the machine and said, okay, now do everything like everybody else did. Because, I mean, that's kind of what middle school is teaching you not to stick out.
So where do you see yourself in a year or two with comedy?
In a year or two, I'd like to expand the number of states I performed in.
Oh, yeah?
I got to get my social media presence
up.
It's one of the things that's holding me back. One of the things I noticed just doing a festival work is it's not that those people aren't funny, but they're not any much more funny than the people I see at open mics all the time.
Yeah.
It's just they're more social media savvy.
Yeah.
Or they have, you know, some kind of background in marketing, or for some of them they have some like auxiliary fame that just lended itself to it, or, you know, they're pretty, and, you know, I don't have any of those, so I just need to get better at the ones I can, and I can't get really prettier, you know, and I don't have any way of getting auxiliary fame, you know, except like pretending that I'm somebody. Like, everybody who looks like me that's famous ends up like they committed a hate crime or something like that. That's what they look like, you know.
I don't know. You gotta market yourself different, like a wrestler comedy. You know?
Yeah, wrestler comedy. Oh man,
because wrestling is so popular right now.
Wrestling has always been popular. It's soap operas for men.
Yeah.
But that's like that area. It's like, I don't know. I got out of that, and like I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid. And
yeah, have you ever wrestled though yourself?
I wrestled in high school, not professional wrestling, but like I wrestled folk style.
How did it do?
I did all right. I was 4-year letterman, but it's one of those things where it's like you go from wrestling to, like, I didn't want to use my, like, I was already trading on my body.
Oh yeah.
For like doing bouncing work and everything like that. That I didn't play sports in college, and I could have, but I didn't.
I guess people wondering like how much you get paid like when you start with like for 5 minutes.
When you have 5 minutes, you generally get paid in exposure.
Oh yeah.
Guest spots are usually a favor, and it's kind of like getting a nod. It's like saying, "Hey, good job. This is the participation certificate.
Okay.
You've honed it down. You've got your first 5. Let's give you a guest spot and get you that experience in front of a larger crowd, because it does make a difference. Like as the crowds get larger, it affects you. Public speaking is the number one fear. And comedy is one of those things where when it goes bad and you haven't had it go bad before, like on a scale where there's that many people staring at
Oh
you,
yeah.
like it is one of the it's crushing, one of my early attempts on stage, like I had a 2-night engagement as a host, and the first night, fantastic.
Oh, yeah?
Second night, I literally had a panic attack on stage, and I never had a panic attack in my entire life. Haven't had one since. But I was absolutely, like, I had no idea what to do. I had no coping mechanisms for it. And I was on tilt. I couldn't get myself right. And it took me, and what's really funny about that is those are the ones that let you know if you're going to keep it going with comedy or not. Because the hardest mic is not your first one. It's the one after you absolutely bomb the ever-loving crap out of it and feel like a worthless piece of crap. And then you're like, why am I even doing this? I'm terrible. But then to come back and like literally I did that happened on a Saturday.
Yeah.
The following Saturday I did my first 15 minutes ever.
Wow.
And absolutely it was like my best show of the year, 1 week apart.
Oh wow.
So my worst show of the entire year of 2022 into my best show of 2022.
It's so unpredictable.
And it's just
comedy.
Well, sometimes it's just about being comfortable. I had terrible I had terrible stage anxiety when I first started. Like,
okay. I think most people do. I had too.
For the first year, you could hear it in my voice. Like I have recordings where it took me a minute to settle down.
Wow.
And I would talk so fast. I'd talk over my laughs. I would not be able to process anything the audience was doing. I just had to get this out.
Yeah.
Get to the first laugh. Get to the first big laugh. And then that would settle me.
I still feel I'm not completely engaged with my audience yet because I don't give them the time to laugh, and I kind of ran through my.
Everybody
lines.
does that. Everybody talks over because you get into that 5 minute and like, oh, I don't get as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's not about getting as much as possible. It's about getting like you're more worried about quantity of what you have than quality of what you have. And one of the things is the more quality you have, the longer it takes for you to tell your jokes.
So what are some of the disadvantages of being this tall, of 6'5"?
The world is not made for me.
Oh yeah.
I am keenly aware of all ceiling fans at all times. It's less of an issue because most of them sit at 6'6", and because I shave my head, it's less of an issue. But if I'm wearing a hat, I need to pay attention. There's that, like roller coaster rides and things like that, especially. Especially Universal. Because they have Harry Potter stuff, and because they wanted younger kids to be able to ride it, they shifted the scale down. A lot of those rides are not like if you're over 6'2", you can't ride them. So it's one of those things. I remember they actually, before they tore the ride out, they actually had a ride that I had ridden before.
Oh yeah.
And then they came back and somebody got severely injured.
Ooh.
And then they came back and said nobody over 6'2" is allowed on this ride. And I'm like, I rode that 3 or 4 times before that sign got put up.
Oh.
In fact, the scariest roller coaster I've ever been on is Space Mountain with the lights on.
So you want a roller coaster, a scary one that you can fit in?
Oh, I don't know. It's about scary. I just love roller coasters.
Okay, you love roller coasters.
I've always loved roller coasters. They're just the best.
I've been to the one in Busch Garden. It was pretty
Kuumba
terrifying.
is one of my favorite. Kuumba is probably still my favorite metal coaster because it's so long.
Oh yeah.
It's like 2.5 minutes. There's 8 loops.
So do Busch Gardens? Can you get in all the rides in Busch Gardens?
Some of them I have to sit in the big boy seat right now. I gotta lose some weight. I have to sit in the seat where it's like whenever the picture comes out, it looks like I am sponsoring these children of the people that are the grown adults sitting next to me. But that's like, it's always one of those things where I feel like I'm normal sized, and then I see myself in a picture with other people, and I'm like, oh, I really need to adjust my angles and things like that. I need to be at least a foot behind everybody for forced perspective.
What else gives you trouble when you travel and when you do other
Travel
things?
is terrible. Like,
Yeah, for a big person.
yeah, flights are only meant for people 6 foot and under.
Yeah.
A lot of times, my most recent flight, I
yeah?
ended up I was supposed to go with my then girlfriend.
Oh, yeah?
And then we broke up before the flight. And the seat next to me got sold at the last minute to somebody who was in a wheelchair.
Ooh.
And I'm cramped into this flight, and then the entire plane has to deplane except for me and this woman because she has to wait for her wheelchair, and I can't stand up because I'm in the window seat.
Oh, no.
And I have to wait for the entire plane, and I'm just like, I'm literally having muscle spasms as I'm trying, you know, because my shoulders are wider than the seat. So
Oh no. What are some of the advantage like you feel stronger like nobody could ever even try to
it's one of
attempt?
those things where it's like, I was a bouncer for a very long time,
Oh yeah?
and I've been in a lot of fights.
Ooh.
Like, but I've never been in a fair fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was never anybody who had any business. You know, like,
Yeah.
like there's a reason why in fighting there's weight classes and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. Like, if you're giving up 150 pounds and a foot of reach,
Oh yeah.
run away. Like, run. You have to have so much training to make up for that. And it's one of those things that's like, if you're drinking and I'm not,
Oh yeah.
like, it's not really a challenge for me. It's more like, okay, I have to fold you like a pretzel and then take you outside suitcase style and toss you and say, don't come back. And then hopefully you tell me your real name so I can go get your card and return it to you, but don't please come back in. You'd be surprised how often physically picking up a grown adult makes them panic. In fact, for those out there, if anybody ever tries to lift you against your will, go limp. Okay?
Oh yeah.
If you go stiff, you're actually helping them.
Oh yeah.
You actually carrying some of your own weight, and you actually make yourself lighter. Like, you pick grown men up like children
Oh yeah.
and be like, you are leaving now. And they're like, it's one of those things where it's like, I should fight back, but then my feet aren't on the ground. And like, I don't know, like, I'm going to slap this guy, and then what's he going to do but put me down very hard? And it's like, I'm going to put you down very hard, but at the exact same, like, I was never a puncher. Punching's dumb, especially from a bouncing standpoint. Like, one, unless you punch constantly, your hand's going to break. It's just going to break. Faces are sharp and pointy, and it's just never a good time. But I was a wrestler, so I could get people on the ground, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're on the ground. I can bench press you. You can't bench press me. Like, I'm on top of you now, and we're going to wait until some authorities or I get some help. Like, and this is not personal or anything like that. I am so much larger than most people.
Yeah.
That one of the first things I realized is, like, you'd have these men who were just overly aggressive, and it was bothersome to the women. They were handsy and things like that. And they would say things like, hey, baby, where you going? They grab their arm, their wrist or their elbow. It's like, why don't you come hang out with me? Let me buy you a drink. Blah, blah, blah. And it's one of those things where, and like, be real handsy. She's like, no, stop. This isn't okay. This isn't okay. And he's just plowing through. And then I could sit there and then come up to him and do the exact same thing to him, you know, and like, you know, I've got a foot on him and 100 pounds, and I was like, come on, baby, let me buy you a drink. I'm grabbing by the elbow and yanking him, and he can't get away and everything like that. He's like, bro, that's not cool. I'm not gay. I was like, I don't care if you're gay. Like, what if he was like, it's prison rules, man, you know. It's not gay if it's not consensual. I don't know. You know, just don't make eye contact. It'll be fine. No, it's one of those things where it's like, did I actually want to ever sleep with these guys? Hell no. Even if I was gay, I'd like to think I have a better, you know, like, I'm not so desperate that I have to sleep with these assholes.
Right.
You know, and that's how everybody should look at them. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, that's what you just did to her. And a lot of people lack that perspective to think about what they're doing to other people.
No, they can't think of it unless they are.
Yeah, like, I need to put
experiencing
you in that
Yeah.
exact same vulnerable position you're putting somebody else in, for you to be like, oh. And I've had like more than half be like, holy shit, like have like that epiphany moment. And I had not a lot, but maybe 1 in 10 would come up to me on a different night and be like, hey man, that really kind of changed how I looked at things, you know, and then everybody stood up and clapped. No, just no, it's just one of those things where it's like it didn't happen very often, or at least not as often as I would have hoped it would have been, but I didn't have a whole lot of repeat offenders.
What's your day job now?
I am a software engineer.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I do less and get paid more than any time ever in my life. And
That's
I'm just
awesome.
like, what is going on?
That's how it's supposed to be. Like, I don't know why everyone starts so hard. Sometimes you're not supposed
Well, I mean, like you make a lot of money trading off your body, which is I did when I was early,
Yeah, I did that too, yeah.
where it's just like, oh, I lift things. You know, I did warehouse work, and then I did warehouse work, and I did bouncing at night, and then I would go do nerd stuff to satisfy. That's the big change that's really been nice for me coming back to dating. Is, you know, I mean,
You're more secure?
it's less that, and people are more okay with it. Like, you used to meet my parents before you found out I played Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that's the way I had to live my life.
Yeah.
Where it was almost like my secret, like I didn't let people know that I was nerdy like that, except for people who knew me in that nerdy setting. And what was really weird is the people who knew me in the nerdy setting never crossed over. So it was like I was leading two lives. You know, there was the people who I worked with and the people I had fun with, and I could have fun with the people I worked with, but I could not bring the people I had fun with to wherever I was working. Like, it didn't process the same. They'd be like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a bouncer, you know, here, there, or there.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we should come there. And I'm just like, you're not going to have a good time. Like, clubs where it's so loud, nobody, you know, like,
Yeah.
nobody has a personality there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
It's like,
don't understand why the music has to be so loud in clubs. Like, I can't talk over.
that's for people without personalities. Like, that's like the people who are like, you look attractive enough just off of your looks
Okay.
for somebody to sleep with you. That's your club.
Okay.
I was like, because oftentimes you get those people outside that club and you try to have a conversation with them, and you're like, oh, you are just too precious for this world, and this is going to go nowhere. Like, I don't know. I went through that when I was younger. I dated a lot of people who were very pretty, but they had been pretty their whole life. And until you have some kind of trauma or you grow up ugly, or like, and have like a ugly duckling thing going on, or honestly like 28, all of a sudden, like, when you stop caring what other people are looking at and start finding out what makes you happy, you know, besides other people looking at you in a positive way, like, that's when you start to develop an inner monologue, an inner story, and start to have a personality and start to have opinions that matter, and opinions that, like, at least things that matter to you, you know, besides how is everybody looking, like having self-esteem coming from inside rather than outside.
I'm curious about, like, other male insecurities. You said, like, males don't get a lot of compliments.
Oh yeah, men don't get men get a compliment on average like every 3 to 5 years, straight men.
Wow.
And like, it affects us. But that's also like, you give a man a compliment, and that's forever. That becomes part of one of his self-esteem pillars that holds up his ego. And like, when one of those goes away, like, they get so mad.
Oh,
like if you're not prepared for like one of your pillars to get kicked out, like, you just like, it'll just ruin your whole day,
Oh.
if not more.
I feel like even for males, I give them a lot of compliments randomly.
See, that's just probably spinning them out. They're like, no, she doesn't know any better. She's
Oh, yeah.
she's not from here. She didn't go to
yeah.
middle school here. She's not trying to blend in.
Oh.
No, it's yeah, for a lot of just physical experience, you know, because most guys, like, a lot of guys, especially comics, don't put enough effort into, you know, just like making sure that they have cologne on, making sure that they have combed their hair and trimmed their beard. I say that with my head like needing to be shaved right now, but nobody on the camera can tell, but I know. But it's one of those things where it's like, you have to be fastidious about it.
Yeah, I was open mic last night. I felt like, they could put a little bit more extra on their appearances and clothes. And
It's one of those things where it's like, I didn't know the shorts rule for the first 4 months I started doing comedy for real, and it's Florida. I wore shorts
yeah.
because it's hot.
Yeah.
And then finally the weather cooled off. I wore pants to an open mic.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh, you finally figured out the pants rule that you're supposed to wear pants all the time." And I'm just like, "What?
What?
No, I just wore pants because it's cold out."
Well, why can't you wear shorts?
But then I got 4 gigs that night. And I was like we were just waiting for you to show that you figured it out. And I'm like, I didn't figure anything out. I just happened to show up with pants on tonight because my legs were cold. And I really, really wish somebody had told me I would have wore pants a long time ago and suffered.
Really?
Yes, it's like a weird thing where it's for male comics. It's like it's for a long time. You couldn't wear. You can't. You had to wear pants. You had to wear pants. No, like especially old school guys. None of them take you seriously unless you wear pants.
I guess if I think about it,
I mean, it's
most of
different
them
for
do
you.
wear pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different for you. You're always wearing a nice dress and things like that, so that's always going to get. It's like honestly, I can't think of a female comic who shows up slovenly, but that I think that's just cultural, like societal, I should say, where just women spend more time taking.
Yeah.
Like, the number of guys I've sat there and looked at and was like, why is it so hard for me to pick up women? And I was like, how much time do you spend getting ready in the morning?
Right.
And they're like, well, I just like throw stuff on, and it's like you're giving your jeans a sniff test and like making sure there's no unsightly stains on your shirt and it's worth wearing a second time. And then you're hitting yourself. Axe, body spray ruined a whole generation of men. Like, it's one of those things where there's nobody teaching them. You know what I mean? There's nobody at home because it's just everything's so busy. Everything's so busy. Everybody's so worried about how do I get to tomorrow that they're not worried about how is this going to affect me in a year.
All right, Joe, what are some of the wishes you have with comedy?
My biggest goal is to be undeniable. I want people to, I don't care if you love or hate me, personally, but just be like, can't say I'm not funny. But beyond that, I want to take my place with Steve Agee and Brian Posehn with the giant gingers with red beards and weird glasses. And I just want a seat at that table. Even if it's just for a second to take a picture. Oddly enough, both those guys taller than me.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Brian Posehn's 6'7". I think Agee's 6'8", 6'9".
Wow.
Yep. I want to feel small. Hey guys, it's Big Joe Murray here. You can find me online at Instagram, Big Joe Murray, Facebook, Big Joe Murray, or just blocking the doors your local comedy club. Don't hand me money, I will keep it. Y'all have a great time.